Good evening. Today's Halloween, is it? But this is not a costume. Never too sure exactly what the deeper meaning of Halloween is. Anyone knows here? Celebration of the death. Death, yeah. It's good, at least they celebrate it. There is happiness in trick or treat. Actually, it's quite interesting. No? Tonight's topic is temporary pleasures versus more enduring, more lasting, more transcending happiness on Halloween. And maybe this is actually interesting. Is there a kind of happiness that transcends this whole phenomena of death? Anyway, we will maybe touch on it later. But when we think of this subject of happiness, when we think of this subject of enjoyment, our great thinkers and philosophers, they say actually every human action is aimed at getting happiness, at being happy. All of our striving, all the things we do, all the things we pursue, deeper inside, the feeling is we want to be happy. Is that true? New York City also? So this strive for happiness, this this pursuit of happiness is kind of omnipresent. And we might not call it like that, but that deeper insight is the motivation. But then immediately there could be the question, are we happy? If all the things we do, all the things we think, all the things we plan, all the things we are involved in are with the aim of happiness, are we truly happy? No. Then why is that? And someone once said, we all want to be happy, but our methods are wrong, and our strategies to attain happiness may not be the right strategies. That is why it eludes us. And one way to think about this is to understand that there is a difference between excitements and what would be the word? Short-term pleasures and a deeper form of contentment or joy or happiness. And that might be like the first step in that direction, to understand that not everything that is exciting and pleasurable leads to happiness. And one example that I always use in my own mind is very simple. Is of the fish. Yeah, you know, when they fish, well, I don't know if people still fish like that, but the old-fashioned way, you just have how do they call it? fishing rod and a thread and a hook and a bait. Those were the tools to get your fish. Now the aim of the fisherman is not to give happiness to the fish. That is not the aim. But the aim is to promise happiness, so that they can be tempted to bite. And then, but the fisherman doesn't set out to give happiness to the fish, but deceives the fish with the promise of happiness. Fulfilling the hunger. Yeah. Or he is so consumed by that physical hunger that he can't see that behind that bait is a hook. And so, of course, this is a very what is it? Visual image, but maybe there are things in this world that are like that. But when they do studies, like positive psychology, or when they research factors that people generally think will make them happy, this is very interesting. And maybe over the past few years, since the whole positive thinking wave and mindfulness wave and the New Age movement have come, we kind of learned to adjust our language, but and we may not say anymore, oh, money makes me happy. But still, deeper inside, our strivings have not really significantly shifted. So we have learned to say, oh, money doesn't make us happy. But still, all our thoughts are around money. So deeper inside, our belief systems have not necessarily shifted. But there are a few things that we kind of generally feel that if we have those things, we will be happier. And one definitely is love, yes. But we think money. If we don't have love, we feel at least money will make me happier. Another thing that people is subconsciously, we won't talk like this anymore because, like I said, we have learned over the years to talk differently. But deeper inside, if we're famous, striving for fame, acceptance, being known, being respected, being acknowledged, and more publicly better, so deeper inside we kind of feel that gives happiness. Having position, certain power in terms of position, there is, and not only money but wealth in a bigger sense. But is it really true? People who are famous, are they more happy than common you and me? Maybe one or so, but in general, it does not guarantee happiness. High position, does it guarantee happiness? No, our big leaders, after their 4 years in office, they are more gray than you and me. So these are not really guarantees. And although much of our striving is in that direction, even love, we strive for love because we think love will make us happy. But we translate that in relationships. Now, when they study relationships and when they study a phenomena like stress, so people who don't have relationship, they have stress. People who have relationship, they are not married, they have stress. They're married, they have no children, they're stressed. They have children. So it is not in those things that the feeling of happiness or contentment or peace is. We forget the inner factor. That there are inner factors. And this is where where it is useful to kind of reflect more and experiment more. To get into mode or see if you're able to adopt a certain framework to life, a certain model to life, a certain mental framework where you can be internally stable regardless of external situations. So you're not married, you're fine, you're married, you're fine. Wouldn't that be more healthy? Than endlessly striving to get married and then still be unhappy. Nothing wrong with marriage, but it doesn't, it might be like that bait, that the fish is thinking it is something that it is not. So when they observe people who say they are happy, when they do these studies in positive psychology, study factors that make people happy or happy people, what is their mental framework. What they observe, it is not necessary to be famous, for example. Many people who are quite content and stable live very simple lives. The whole thing about money and wealth, what they see is that a certain basic level of income, yes, but anything beyond that doesn't make us more happy. So it is not that those who have hundreds of thousands or who have millions, that they are a million times more happy than one who has, 60,000 a year. Understand? So but we are kind of conditioned to think like that. But what is observed is one definite characteristic of people who are emotionally more stable, people who are more into a mode of deeper joy, is they are givers. They are not in a begging mode, they are not in a victim mode, they are in a giving mode. And giving doesn't mean you're on the corner of the street handing out candy and dollars. Well, that is one way, but you can give your time, you can give a smile. Someone who is always in the mode of trying to contribute and serve and cooperate in little ways, in big ways, but that attitude of giving. That is a definite characteristic of people who are more happy and content. Another characteristic of people who have a deeper sense of joy with life is they can see the positive angle to anything. And when we observe ourselves, and I observe this within myself, but also in sharing with others, there is the tendency to be quite negative in general. And many of us, we have these cyclical thoughts, repetitive thoughts. And most of these repetitive thoughts are not very positive. They are either, oh, you forgot something, or oh, you didn't do this thing right, or oh, you have to get this thing, or why did they say like that, or why are they doing like that, or why are they not treating me with more respect, or why didn't they give me this, or why that, and shouldn't be like that. Even in a resting mode, are kind of our resting thoughts. Or thoughts just before you go to sleep, or thoughts when you wake up. They are, much of it is kind of nagging. Does that happen? So there is this constant discontentment going on, like a baseline. You go out on the street and think, oh, it is raining. Go to the subway or something, you must be late again. And even if the train is on time, oh, all these people, and it's smelling here, and it is hot here, it is cold here. These people, someone come in, why they touch me? You know this, this chapter. And this has nothing to do with anyone else. It is just our own internal programming. And this is that inner factor, which by default at the moment most probably is not in the highest state or the highest consciousness. And because we are in this kind of default nagging mode, we are deceived by the bait on the hook. No, something is dangled there, and some excitement, some happiness. But then we're in bigger trouble because now there's a hook. So this is what happens. So like say for example, you go on a vacation and you have a great time. It is so super, super, super. But just the thought that you have to get back already spoils the holiday. And when you get back, then you're missing. So your baseline is lower than before you went on holiday, because now you're missing that you were on holiday. And this is also what you see. Sometimes something nice happens, something good happens, something nice happened, but then when you think about it, you don't think about it in the form of gratitude, but you think about it in the form of, I'm missing that. So we kind of are conditioned to need to suffer. We kind of programmed to kind of pull ourselves down. And then we take an ice cream, you have high. And after the ice cream, even maybe during the ice cream already, because you think I shouldn't actually be taking the ice cream. So some people call it the coffee and ice cream culture, meaning the quick fix, instant gratification culture, but it leaves us craving for more. Now, is there an option? And what is this inner factor that could put us in a different frame of mind? Yeah.
And not these physical pleasures. That could really
Mhm. Yeah, to discover or acknowledge or reinforce our deeper, higher spiritual nature. And one aspect of that is our own immortality as spiritual beings. The immortality of the soul. Now, for example, someone who positions and go through life in the consciousness, in the awareness of being immortal, timeless, as opposed to someone who is conditioned to believe, I am mortal, there is no higher nature to me, and I need. Can you see the the differences in consciousness and feelings?
And this one, in the physical, he's only aware of the physical world,
Yeah.
are separate. But in the
Yeah.
other world, where you notice that your soul, with all
Yeah.
practice, you feel a sense
Yeah.
of
Connectedness also. Very good. And so, as if to open ourselves up to a joy that transcends the sense experiences, a joy that transcends the limited physical feelings. We as if need to shift our perspective on who we are and what is possible for us. And so one of my favorite pastime is drawing. I think this needs a little louder. Just a little sketch to understand ourselves as spiritual beings, not human beings, but a spiritual being who uses this body as a vehicle, a soul. And this being enters, this boxes represents the physical world. We enter the physical world, and at some point in time, we leave it again. Now this is like a bigger map to life. And so the body is in this box, your house and your physical relationships and possession and position and all of that, and dollars, it is here, and your gadgets, it is here. But you begin to as if understand yourself from a broader perspective, a bigger map. You are that spiritual being which carries innately the potential of joy. It carries innately your nature is peace and love. And we come here as travelers, you could say. And at some stage, we go back. And someone was reminding me of a story. And maybe you have heard this story. It is of a queen who lost her necklace. And she was looking for it all over the palace, and she put everyone to look, and she can't find this necklace. And at night before she goes to bed, she looks into the mirror, and the necklace is right around her own neck. And something like to that effect is what is happening to us. We have come into this physical world, and we are looking and 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 wanting this and wanting that and needing this and needing that, thinking all those things will make us happy. But we have that, we carry the necklace within. But what blocks us? Unawareness, yeah. Not knowing true self, not knowing your potential. And there's one other thing also. Well, it is connected, but we are deceived. We are programmed to think that all these external things are needed before I can be happy. And it is, you understand? So if you take away these blockages, that limited thinking, and understand you don't need anything truly to be happy. You don't need all these things to be happy. So if that sense of neediness is gone, how do you feel? Free. Very good. Very good. So shall we try? We'll do a few moments. Do a little. This is like thought experiments. Or you can call them meditation exercises, however you want to. Let's do for a few minutes. Let's see if you can just play with this. So as we sit here, and we keep the body comfortable, we just introduce this thought that the real self is invisible, spiritual, traveler. And we see this being in the form of a tiny star in the center of the forehead, behind the eyes, the soul. And this traveler needs nothing. Even this body is an extra gift for this spiritual traveler. And we just hold this thought from this whole physical world. We need nothing truly. It is all an extra gift. But the real self, this beautiful star, is timeless. A spiritual being who needs nothing from this world. It's just passing through. A being of light. Immortal. And the sound and the movement and the body and this whole drama of life, it is kind of an extra game. the invisible star, the traveler. Just observes. Thank you. Do you get a sense of that lightness that is there when you're in this different mode of traveler? This sense of lightness is a kind of happiness that doesn't have to do with anything external. So that kind of lightness of the traveler, that kind of lightness of the journey, that kind of lightness of everything is extra. That is a kind of joy that you can experience and deepen and strengthen regardless of external situation, regardless even of the body, because even the body is seen as extra. Now we are not trained to think like that. We are not familiar with that kind of model to life, but we can grow into that. And then hold that lightness always. Now someone today was talking and was giving the example of a honeybee. And this honeybee is hungry and he's unhappy. So what is he doing? He is looking for a honey pot. Looking for a honey pot. So he finds a honey pot and he goes into the honey pot and then he drowns in the honey. And I'd like this imagery because something like that, the honeybee, he can make honey for himself. He doesn't need to go in no honey pot to get honey. But then he gets stuck in and it's sticky and he drowns. And I kind of feel this is similar to our stage. We are those honeybees. And then we get into the excitements of the drama of life, and then we drown in that. We get sucked in. We get as if trapped in that. That is what that downward spiral symbolizes. We start thinking we need, we want, we desire, we get into these bondages. Then we think we can't do without it. And you don't see, the honeybee cannot get out anymore. He is trapped. And he drowns in his temporary excitements. And so, to come out of that limited view and that limited perspective. Now, there are two other words. Paras is an intellect that has a wide view, and Patar is stone, like stone intellect. You can only see limited perspective. So, and this perspective first applying to ourselves. Play with a different view of yourself. Because in the victim mode, in the needy mode, in the beggar mode, you are destined to yeah.
Even if life is what we worldly consider good, because it has everything. A person has all the riches, all the relationships, all the fame,
Deeper insight, maybe not all the time and maybe not at that moment necessarily, but there is the knowing that it will not last. So there is always the insecurity, and this is why dying and death is seen as a monster, because that will take all of that, what I think makes me happy, will take it all away. Whilst if there is that lightness and that joy and that freedom experienced from soul consciousness, the end of this body doesn't mean the end of that lightness and that joy. It doesn't mean the end of the journey. It doesn't mean the end of the traveler. They also are travelers. Yeah. They also are travelers. They also are travelers, and we continue to meet in different ways. No one, the inner being, the soul, never dies. And just even if you have not deeply reflected on this, but if you start doing that now, just that real understanding of eternity of the soul. So there's no need to be insecure, because the soul cannot ever be destroyed, cannot ever die. That in itself, it gives kind of such a peace, no? And a fearlessness. And if that is the positioning, eternity, immortality of the soul, then whatever happens to us is like an entertaining game. It is extra. It is a gift. This body is a gift for you to play with for X number of years. Now, others, they are gifts for you to share, to interact, to enjoy. Yeah, free.
I am not the brain. I'm not controlled by the brain. I control the brain.
Exactly. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Very good. Now this power of choice, what to think. You have the power of choice, what perspective you hold on life. Do you want to live in that box? And is that box the only thing you ever know? And then you are dependent on things of the box to be happy. And those are the happiness of ice cream and some fame or some position. But all of that can be lost. Yeah. Can end. And so even if you're experiencing it now, there is an insecurity because it can be lost. And you don't know when. But the joy of the traveler who sees all of that as extra, who is out of that neediness, plays the game, enjoys the extra gifts, and is light and free, and appreciate. So shall we try one more time? Because we as if need to make this more strong, no? Our that perspective, you could say. Okay. So as we keep, as always, the body comfortable. And keep your attachments. Don't worry, they will not run away. and the pounds and the dollars, and don't worry. And just check that your legs are relaxed. Feel the floor underneath your feet. Relax the hands. Relax the shoulders. And play with the air as if on inhalation you pull in the air into the lungs, and on exhalation you push the air out. See the wonder of every moment. And focus the attention on this tiny star sitting behind the eyes, invisible, but we understand. This is the real self, the soul, the immortal being, the driver of this vehicle. The body is like a car, a very sophisticated, beautiful vehicle. And the soul is the driver. But the driver never becomes the car. Car is the car. The driver is the driver. And the end of the car doesn't mean end of the driver. This car is a gift for the driver. Extra. But the driver exists regardless of the car. Living, conscious, divine being of light. Soul is on the eternal journey. Soul is eternal. The soul belongs to the dimension of silence and light, the home of souls, eternal home. The being of light, beautiful sparkling star. Is a guest, a driver temporarily of this body in the physical world. But the soul is free. doesn't need anything from this physical world. It is all extra. Eternal, living, pure light. Innately, the real self, the soul, is free, is peaceful, playful, joyful, regardless of the body, regardless of the scenes in the physical world. All it needs is that detached, spiritual perspective, the bigger map. And we just hold the focus on that tiny star sitting behind the eyes. The beautiful traveler, immortal, soul. Thank you. Can you get a feeling of the contrast? Want to say anything or ask anything?
I'll say thank you too. I have to repeat everything, and I have a joy of language. I'm sorry I was late. Thank you for having me. And I love that you say eternal, immortal, softness, joy. And it's very timely for me, of course, to learn Paras and Tapa, which I'll study further. Because I've been in the box for a while, either elder care and other stuff, and it's good. And it's just, I'm just emerging, I think, now a little bit. So I'm blessed to know you. Thank you.
Anyone else? We are so conditioned not to what would be the word? To just live in the world of sense experiences. and what we see, what we can feel, what we can hear. And we position ourselves as needing from that to be someone or to experience, whilst the spiritual knowledge says the complete opposite. All of that is extra. A gift. Yeah. Extra. It's kind of revolutionary for our own brain to wrap our mind around. But the more you play with it, more you get a sense of what that means.
Society still makes it taboo to talk like we are spirits. People think you're weird. There's such a mainstream science,
Yeah. Maybe it will be useful to make another drawing. Yes.
Can you consider religion?
Yeah. At least what has become of it. Yeah. What it has become like part of our limited physical identity. And then we fight. Yeah. But within religious circles, there are people who are truly striving for a deeper understanding, and they try to transcend that limited identity. So I would not want, and I mean many of the religious founders, they did not set out to create a religion, so that was not necessarily how it started. But what has become of it? Yeah. But to address a little bit this idea of scientific thinking, mainstream scientific thinking, it is interesting in some cultures, even today. I lived for a while in the Dominican Republic, and in some places, if we would have a fair or a program, people will ask me, is this in the Bible? If it is not in the Bible, it means it's not. But in other places and in other culture, they ask you, science doesn't say like this. Where's the scientific proof? Is it same? This is a little bit same kind of positioning. No? Just because science doesn't research it or doesn't have the tools to research it, it means it is not true. It is the same kind of limited thinking. I mean it depends on what you define as proof. Now, I mean, if you're hungry, you don't wait for scientists to tell you that you should eat, and that is good. You will just eat. You know, it is your experience. You know this is good and true. No?
I'm not an expert in Shakespeare, as far back way before. There's the character that says something like there's much more under heaven and earth, Horatio, than is contained in your philosophy. So my little small way, the blending, interweaving of science and religion can be all one in a
Shine it. Exactly. Yeah. 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 And actually, the true scientists, real scientists, those who really search truth, their positioning is we don't know. They don't claim. Yeah, yeah. And also there is, I forgot, the name is eluding me, there is a famous neuroscience brain specialist in Scandinavia. He got the he got the Nobel Prize for medicine not too long ago. I forgot his name, but he says he has dedicated his whole life to study the brain and the neurophysiological pathways of the brain. So he truly knows. And he says there is an entity outside of the brain that makes it. It has to be. That is his conclusion. And he also used this word, soul, sometimes in his. So what I'm saying, there are a lot of half-baked scientific and many of us may also claim certain scientific things and we are not properly even studied. But to just understand this, but to simplify it, if this is the manifest world, the existing world, and there is the moon, there are stars, and there are dollars, there are all kinds of things. And here is a caterpillar. A caterpillar. A caterpillar has one sense organ. A caterpillar can touch. So the caterpillar knows this thing is here because he bumps into it. That is why he knows this is here. And he goes somewhere else and he bumps into this, so that is how he knows he is there. He doesn't know about moon and dollars and stars because he can't touch it. There's another animal, a bat. I can't draw very well, but a bat. A bat has two sense organs. He can smell and he can hear. So a bat knows this thing is here because he sends out sound signals and he hears them. So that is how he orientates. He knows, but he can't see this thing. He can't see this. So he hears and he smells. So he doesn't know about moon and stars either. And if they would have some reductionist scientists among the caterpillars and the bats, and someone states there is a moon, what will they say? And there's no moon, we cannot touch it, there's no moon. These will say we can't smell it, we can't hear it, doesn't exist. But there's another creature roaming the earth. Like I said, I can't draw very well. Human beings. We have 5 sense organs. We can see, we can touch, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste. We don't have endless discussions on whether the moon and the stars exist. We know it exists. For us, that is the manifest world. So the world of the caterpillar is our world. The world of the bat is also our world, largely. And we have a slightly bigger manifest world that we can perceive through our sense organs. But we have our own philosophers and reductionist scientists, or even some half-baked. Is there anything more than what we can perceive? Yeah, exactly. But to say it doesn't exist is we're doing the same as these caterpillars saying there's no moon, there's no star. More honest and more statement of integrity would be, I don't know. Because what I can perceive with my senses is this. What I cannot perceive with my senses, I don't have tools to study that. And there's nothing wrong with science, and especially and we're talking now about the natural science and the sciences, because of course there are other sociology and those kinds of areas. But the physical sciences, the natural sciences, they have studied the physical world and they have done a phenomenal job with that. No, the way this body functions, your gadgets, the subway, this building, electricity is all the fruit of the effort that has gone into that. But to state that that is the only thing, as if there's nothing else, that is where we have gone off track. And maybe that is where we also have lost the potential to experience the joy that is beyond the sense experiences, which is much more, lasting. And so it's not that we have to throw out this now and that we have to say it is bad. No. But we have to explore what is beyond the senses, because this is all temporary. And deeper inside, we are longing for something that is not temporary. But if we look in the manifest world, that will not be there. And a good example of something that is not perceived by the sense organs is your own thoughts. Now, do they exist? If they exist or not, you feel the effects of them all the time. Yeah. Yes.
Raja Yoga explains the soul and its very power that.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what not this one, the previous one says, no, that death is just one scene in the journey. And not only that, it is part of the game of life. But we have created, maybe we have created a distorted understanding of it, which has made us so scared of it that we maybe not even see the natural nature of that phenomena. Because everyone, like birth, will go through the stage of death. But if we identify with the body, then we feel we die. But if we understand ourselves as souls, as spiritual beings on a journey, then that is just a change of costume. I enter one body for a particular experience, and then that experience ends. But doesn't mean the soul ends. I continue with the journey.
But we don't know because we are not in that hemisphere.
Yes and no. We don't know also because we have not opened ourselves up to that. No? But also we have learned to not listen to signals that point towards those other experiences. Because, for example, there are many children who vividly and actively tell. But because we are conditioned in the box, we say, nonsense, keep quiet, imagination. But also when we look at ourselves, truly, if we have really taken time, quiet time, you will see tendencies within yourself that transcend formation in this lifetime. Now, as a little girl, growing up in a certain place, in certain circumstances, together with siblings, but having completely different tendencies and inclinations. And for example, I grew up in the tropics in South America. But there was such a deeper love for Islam, for example. And every time on television when I would see women with hijab, and my heart used to kind of, and this was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I had never even seen people except for on television. A deeper feeling for certain languages. And my brother was not like that at all. He had other inclinations. And there are so many signals, but because we are so conditioned to think in the box, we think this is just inclination, this is imagination, or whatever it is we think.
So in other words, reincarnation is the proof that a soul is still alive after.
I feel so, yeah. That is one of the, and there is, though that phenomena is studied properly. And I definitely feel those accounts are a physical proof of that consciousness transcends the physical death of the body. Yeah. Also, that is another, not almost. There are people who are declared brain dead. And still, during the time that they were brain dead, when they come back, they talk about experiences that happened during that brain dead time. Now, who has been experiencing? It is not the functioning of the brain.
Sometimes they meet relatives that they have never met or known, and they came back and discover later, oh wow, this is my grandpa.
All kinds of phenomena are there, and I am not saying that we have to give credibility to all, because there's also a lot of whatever out there. But there are certain phenomena that hint us. But the best thing is your own understandings and your own experiences. And you don't need to try to remember your past life. Please don't go to no regression or anything. There is no need for that. But just experiment with understanding yourself as a being of consciousness using the body. And acknowledge the feelings and the inclinations that are there, and also the deeper tendencies. There is goodness and there is beauty in every one of us, but we have not acknowledged it, and it has been overloaded with all kind of conditioned ideas that cover the innate beauty that is there. And then we have these nagging thoughts, subconscious going on, harassing us all the time.
Some people remember somehow the past life. How about the same soul going to be, what kind of life that soul going to have?
When they, I mean, this is a bit of a different topic, but when they study this phenomenon of children who remember past birth, they don't remember all the details most of the time, and they forget also as they grow into this present life. They kind of get adapted to this news, and so that memory as if is merged. But many talk about a sudden death, young age, or accidents. So the one way to interpret that is if the soul has a normal full lifetime from birth and active life, family, job, whatever involvement, and then retirement and withdrawing and detachment, as if it closes the chapters and it closes the book, and then a new start. But if in the middle of the book it is abruptly ended, then there are more vivid, alive memories carried over, which then take more time to quiet down. Details. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, this is a different topic now. But we can, sometimes we have this topic on the Thursday night.
If a soul multiplies, this is more birth than death.
No, what happens is there are the previous image, I was drawing the soul world, the home, and the physical world. So at this moment in time, the world population is still growing. So it means souls from the soul world join us. They start their journey. While some of us are already here for a while, others are joining in.
There's a long run.
Anyway, this was Halloween night. There are a few of us tonight because most, I think, are involved in trick or treat or whatever. But this gives space for a bit more interactive and more deeper discussions. Nice. You want to say some final thoughts? No. Yeah.
I would just say that people are, I don't know whether you could say conventionally or whatever, they're limited by the kind of information they get, and they're limited by their way of looking at that information.
Yeah.
And until they get beyond taking everything at face value, they're going to be stuck in the rut.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say that for myself. I know that. I mean, it's nice to have certain things. It's nice to have everything go perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not real. I know that.
And it will not last.
I
Yeah.
made mistakes
Mm.
in different ways. Not, fortunately not a tragedy, but still, life is not everything golden, and nothing will guarantee that everything will go the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
But according to, I use the expression oil,
Mm-hmm.
people believe that there is a magic formula, or if we only have this, and this, everything will be perfect. But
Mm-hmm.
it ain't so.
Yeah, yeah. And this is to come back to something we mentioned earlier. If in those studies of positive psychology, when they observe characteristic of persons who are happy or more happy in life, many of them, they live very simple lives. Many of them have the tendency to give. They're not beggars or takers or needy. They somehow found ways to position themselves as in a giving mentality. They found themselves in the mentality of gratitude, where you see things as gifts and extra. And this is a model that we can play with to get in those kinds of mode. The soul as and the best way is, you can, these days you can overload your brain with information, but still not be, you don't even have the time to properly digest all the information that is out there. But we undermine the wisdom that is inside. We not allow our own nature to explore that and experiment with that. And this is an invitation to do that. And it might make us more happy than all the Google information that is out there. No? Nothing wrong with that, but not to depend on that and not to undermine the beauty that is already there inside. And just play with the power of thought, choice of thought you have. Play with this different model to life and see how you feel. Yeah. Instead of conditioned to yes?
I wonder, we are born and we go to school and we're conditioned to strive and to study just because we want to become professionals today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would be nice that we don't, that we know this perspective of life while growing up.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, learning this perspective earlier in life. Yeah. Yeah. But we have learned from the adults around us. So our children can learn from their adults, which are us. Isn't it? So let us play with it and implement it and share it with them and live with that broader perspective. So they will grow up learning from us.
Can you say the words again? Whose adults learn from whose adults? No, I love it. I just didn't hear it.
Yeah, I understand, but I have to remember.
Of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, when we were children, we learned from the adults around us. So our conditionings and our learnings is what they were living. So our children will learn from us. The generations that come after us, they will learn from us. So if we now start living and playing and experimenting with this and sharing this, the next generation and the younger generations, they will learn from us, and they will grow up with this possibility. So we cannot change for ourselves anymore, but at least we can do it now, so that it will influence others. Yeah. 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 Because we can say, okay, I did not learn, but now I'm learning. And those who are learning, growing up now, they can learn from us. Anyway, let's close with a moment of so again come back to this kind of more internalized frame of mind. Appreciate and accept the things externally as they are. Appreciate and accept this body. And come back to this idea of the real self being the immortal, divine, invisible star, being of light, in the center of the forehead, behind the eyes. A traveler. Who needs nothing from this world. This world is like an extra gift. Doesn't need this body even. Indestructible, immortal, eternal soul. Eternally secure and free. Light. And as we go through this journey, we aim to stay in this spiritually awake state of mind. Never forgetting that we are travelers. Innately divine beings of light. Om Shanti.